All right. Thank you so much for joining again and the second session. And we have only one thing remaining from descriptive writing is I would like to assign you, a task of descriptive essay writing or an article writing. Okay. And as you can see on my screen, that I would like you to write a 500 verse long description of life in slums of Pakistan. All right. Do you understand what is the meaning of the word slum? Please tell me, or if not,
यस
I can
यस
explain.
मैम।
All right. So
पसमानदगी मैम उर्दू में बोलते हैं।
yes, 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 yes. बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल. Like dilapidated places or the places or the people who are living in such a state of poverty. All right. And the marginalized community, people living in very deprived condition below the poverty line and don't have the basic amenities of life. Like we can say there are we can
कंडीशंस में।
we can quote some of the examples of the areas. I'm not going to name here, but when you are writing you can definitely give the references. Okay. And it would be nice that you have a thorough research and understanding about that what people actually experience living in those areas and what are their problems. All right. So you have to write a 500 words long descriptive essay, and which topic is life in slums of Pakistan. You may use the following words in your assignment. All right. So this is, a little vocabulary help has been given to you. If you use these words, it's fine, but it's not everything. I mean, when you are writing a descriptive essay, so you will have to write and follow all those tools and the techniques which we have discussed in the previous session. And I hope that your piece of writing will be good. I will strongly suggest you to write in your own words and no plagiarism is allowed. Okay. So this is the assignment and I will share this PowerPoint presentation as well as this particular slide of assignment in the WhatsApp group so that everyone gets to know it. Okay. And I will share the deadline of submitting the assignment in the WhatsApp group as well. We are not going to talk much about it here. Just wanted to share with you that this is the assignment. Now I would like to share a sample article or descriptive essay which can help you in writing. Let me stop share and share once again. Okay. Okay. So that part is done. Now we are going to start the another topic which is called narrative writing. Okay. Have you heard about narrative writing? What is narrative writing? What is narrative writing?
मैम narrative writing says
Mm-hmm. Narrative writing is?
मैम narrative writing which tells us something about
Mm-hmm. Okay. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we were talking about the types of essay writing, and there are types of essays and how these are written. So the first session was about descriptive writing, and the second session is about narrative essays. All right, what is a narrative essay? A narrative essay tells a story. You know, if we are in easy words, when we talk about narrative writing, basically, can you give the examples of narrative writing? It may be wrong, but it's fine. I would like you to please share. What do you think? What type, what should come under the, umbrella of narrative writing? What are some of the examples of narrative writing?
name my first day at university, my first day at
All right, my first day at the university. Okay, yes, we can say that it is more personalized, like we use I narrative. We from the narrative of first person. All right, so you can say that all the plays and the novels and the autobiographies and the biographies, the history. All right, these are when we write them, these are the examples of narrative. writing. Okay,
Yes,
mainly
ma'am.
mainly mainly writing the story. Why writing a story and telling a story is a part of narrative writing. And when you are writing a narrative essay, what do you do in it? You also write the events in the proper chronological order, all right, that this happened first and that happened first. So we'll come to explore all these things in the upcoming slides. So even though narrative essay has the same basic form as most other academic essays, it allows the writer to be more creative than academic essay usually do. All right, how you gonna explore this? Look at this. Narrative essays are there are several important essays. Important elements make up a story. Narrative writing is basically, writing a story or telling a story. So when you are writing a story or when you are telling a story, what are the essential element of writing a good story or writing a good narrative essay? So that we will be exploring in this session today. So several important elements that make up a story is the location where the action in the story happens. All right. Then it should have a theme, the basic idea of the story. So very often the theme will deal with the topic that is common in life or human nature, such as greed, envy, love, independence, and so on. In other words, that the writer is going to decide that what will be the theme or the main topic or the moral of the story. Okay. Do you remember any stories, by the way?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, so
Okay.
many.
Okay. So when you are reading a story, what do you notice? What are some of your observations? Like, talk about a story which is not very big, like very small, a short story that you have ever read, and tell me that what are the elements of writing a story? What do we normally observe? What do you, when we are reading, or like, when you are watching a film or a drama? So these are also based on stories, these are the stories that we are watching. And
Ma'am,
when we are reading or watch, you
moral.
can read a story, you can watch a story. So what are the elements that we observe or that you have observed? Yes.
In the end, we get lesson regarding something else.
Okay, in the end we get lesson. All right, good. uh, do you think that every story has a lesson? Every story has a lesson? Yes or no?
No idea, ma'am.
No idea. All right, chale, let's go ahead. Then another thing is like mood, the feeling or atmosphere that the writer creates for the story, and it could be happy, hopeful, suspenseful, or scary. Both the setting and descriptive vocabulary create the mood in a narrative. Okay, see, when we talk about writing a story, so the first and the most important thing is a plot. All right, every story has a plot and the plot structures. So when we talk about a plot has basically the five elements in a story. Okay, when you are writing a story or when you are writing an essay, we will talk about from essay writing point of view as well. But since when we say that narrative writing is basically telling a story or writing something in a way that it looks as if it is telling a story. So early on in the essay, you may want to add more details to introduce characters, settings, situations, which is called exposition. However, as the narrative progresses, so should the action leading to the climax. And usually the structure of a narrative closely resembles that of a traditional plot. So when you are writing a story, look at this. When a story begins, all right, in the very first phase, the story first tells you that where, when, and where was the story set. All right, the plot is first telling you the place and the time. Have you read the stories which begin always once upon a time? Have you read the
Yes,
story?
ma'am.
All right. So yes. So once upon a time in a village, once upon a time in the in the countryside of in the countryside of England, all right, or once upon a time in the northern areas of Pakistan, whatever it is. So the story when you begin a story and you are telling about the place and you are telling about the time where the setting is done, the character's setting is done, is called exposition, and we can also call it conflict. All right. So the first part of writing a story is to tell that when and where was the story set and the character set. All right, that is called exposition or conflict. Then after, or you can say that we can, this is like the exposition, and the conflict also introduces the characters, that what are the main characters in the story. All right. So when you are watching a movie or when you are watching a drama, the very first episode is basically the introduction of the characters. Agree or disagree?
No, man.
Yes. The very first story, the very first episode, or the first part of the story is always the introduction of the main characters. Is it not so?
No, man. By
Uh-huh.
watching the story, we get to know the characters.
No, you're not getting my point. All right, Asad. I'm saying that when you are reading a story, all right, when a story begins, okay, basically the story and the plot is relying on the characters. Okay, if I ask you to write a story, what will you first think about? You will first think about the time and the place, all right, and then you will think that what should be the characters of my story. So you will first think about the characters. Yes, without characters there is no story.
Characters.
Huh. Characters means, acha, you are mixing characteristics and character. I'm not talking about characteristics. I'm talking about the characters, the main people playing the major role in the story, the people playing the major role and the significant role in the story. Are you getting?
Yes, ma'am. Now
All
we
right.
got the point.
Okay. Now, in easy words, you can say that if you are watching a story, Titanic, watching a movie, Titanic, it is a story, or any Bollywood movie, all right, or any drama. Okay, the first thing is to introduce the character. Like, you will see that, okay, this is a good character. He is very kind. He is very soft. He is such a philanthropist. All right. And then you will see that the other character is introduced, and you get to know, okay, this character is a villain. This character is a negative character. This character is a wicked character. You get it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so first of all, in the story, you get to know about the characters. All right, that this is their introduction. He belongs to this family, he belongs to this family, he is poor, he is rich, he is businessman, he is a laborer. All right. So the first part of the story is about the time and the place and the setting of the characters. Then the story proceeds, and there are certain a series of actions that happen with the characters, which is called rising action. The story proceeds, right? The story proceeds. The story moves on based on these characters, based on the actions, based on the situations, based on the events that take place in the story with the characters. All right, where the main characters faces or face a series of conflicts. And then there comes in the story the most exciting and the turning point, which is called climax. All right. And the climax is the most interesting part of the story that, that excites the readers or the viewers, that what will happen the next. This is called the climax. Climax is the highest and the peak point of the story that leaves the reader with a lot of questions, that what will happen. Then, after the climax, the story starts, the problems and the conflict, whatever the issues were there, they start, um, you know, to resolve, like events leading to the end of the story. So you see that if a story begins with a problem and it has a conflict, whether it is about a family, whether it is about, uh, you know, child labor, whatever your theme is, you first start a story, you tell and introduce the characters, then certain events happen with the characters, all right, they face different series of actions, and then there is this the highest point in the story, which is called the climax. And after the climax, the things start to resolve, which is called falling action. And then the end of the story, at the end of the story is basically called resolution, that all the problems that you showed in the story, now they are resolved. So resolution can be happy, resolution can be sad, all right. Not all stories end at a happy note. Agree or disagree? All right, some stories have sad endings.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, so look at this.
Like, ma'am, मेरे पास तुम हो.
Yes, 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 yes. So this is I mean, stories are all around, like all the dramas and the movies are definitely are telling you a story. These are stories. First, the stories are written, and then they are pictured for the audiences. What are some style and design tips? All right, see, narrative essay or narrative writing is like it uses the first person I. All right, so the topics and the subjects like um, you know my first day at the university, all right, this can be a topic of your narrative essay writing. So when you are writing about my first day at the university, so what will be your subject of writing? I, first person, all right. Use figures of speech again, such as similes and metaphors and analogies, okay. And these are where the song lyrics will come into the essay as well. Use strong active verbs. She is celebrating, okay, like, which is versus she celebrates, means that when you are describing. Acha, in the narrative writing, you can also add descriptive writing, can come anywhere in any kind of writing, all right. So maybe you are writing a story and then you are describing the scene, you are describing the place. So it will also involve the descriptive writing. Use powerful and precise modifiers. The more powerful the adjective, the better. Freezing versus very cold. So instead of saying that it was very cold, you can say it was freezing. So it is going to give more impact to your writing. Okay. One more thing in the narrative writing, and the one more component, and you can say characteristics of narrative writing is, because narrative writing is all about writing stories involving the characters. So you can use dialogue when appropriate to give life to your characters and situations, like you are making two characters speak with each other. All right. Develop the setting to set the context and mood. I have an example of narrative essay as well, which I will show you. Now, example, look at this. As I started to swim in the warm ocean, jumping over waves, I left others behind. I was still wearing my long back skirt, which was quite heavy in the water, but my feet was touching the ocean floor, so I was not worried. But at one instant, I felt my feet could not touch the ocean floor anymore, and I was plunged into the water, weighed down by my clothing. Giant waves kept coming, and I was getting sucked into the depths every time they came. I tried to call out to my friends, but no sound came out my mouth. All right. So look at this. The difference between the, there's a very slight difference between descriptive and narrative writing, that narrative writing is more personalized. It is sharing your own experiences, that what you went through, what you have experienced, that you are right when you are writing about it. It is narrative writing. Okay. So this is one scene, this is one example that happened to the person, all right, and the person is narrating. Writing a diary can be a narrative writing because you are writing about your experiences, all right. When you are writing a narrative essay, okay, so in the narrative essays, characters, the people in the story, They are affected by the mood and they react to the events in which they are involved. Then there is a plot, what happens in the story, and that is the sequence of the events. The plot often includes a climax or a turning point at which the characters or events change. So we have already talked about there are five elements of a plot. All right, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. So an effective narrative essay includes these elements. A thesis. Remember that every essay has a thesis, or most of essays, should have an introductory paragraph, should have a thesis that sets up the action in the introduction. Transition sentences that connect events and help the reader to follow the story. When we talk about transition, what comes in your mind? What are the transition words? What are the transition sentences? Can you please write in the chat box and tell me? Hello, what are the transition words?
And it includes more than one object, is it?
Okay, all right. See, transition words are, when you are writing and you are writing the events and the series of the events. So, do we write first, second, okay, secondly, after that, then? Do we write that? Okay, these are the transition words. All right. Uh, when you want to include more information, you want to add more information, so we write in addition to that, further, furthermore, moreover, additionally. These are also transition words. When you are sharing your opinion, all right, I think, I believe, as far as I know, personally, I think, all right, when you are giving examples and illustrations, so you say such as, for instance, in other words, to show that in case of, so these are transition words, all right. So transition words are very important because when you are writing the series of the events and you are writing the narrative essays, so transition words play a very vital role in, in giving your write-up a very professional and academic look. Okay, now then a conclusion that ends the story or the action and provide a moral or a prediction or a revelation. Your end could be anything. It can be based on a moral, it can give you a prediction or anything. Now, when you are writing a narrative essay, the introduction is the paragraph that begins your story. This is where you describe the setting, introduce the characters, and prepare the reader for the action to come. Of course, the introduction should have a hook and a thesis. So the narrative hook, usually the first sentence or two that grab readers' attention. Hooks are especially important in narrative essays because they help set the stage. So we all have studied about the hook in the previous lecture. That hook is the most interesting sentence in an essay that catches the reader's attention. It's called hook. So, in the narrative essay, an example of a good hook is because you are writing from the first person point of view, and as well as you are writing a story or an event. So, the good hook can be, I had never been more anxious in my life. I had just spent the last 3 endless hours trying to get to the airport so that I could travel home. So, you see, this is the beginning of your essay, and now the reader would want to know that what happened next. Were you able to reach home safely or not? What happened in between? All right, so this is a good hook. It makes the reader asks the following questions: who is the narrator and why is he or she anxious? Where is the airport? What made the trip to the airport seem endless? And why is this person going home? And where he was, from where he is traveling to home. Okay, so these are all the questions that will arise in the mind of the reader. Now the thesis.
And
Yes,
by using hook, can we get the attention of the reader?
exactly. You have to write your essay, the first two sentences, in such a way that it catches the attention of the reader. Okay, in all kinds of essays, basically thesis statement, hook, and these uh, the component of an introductory paragraph that we have already studied, this fit in all types of essays. Okay, so the
So
thesis is,
when
yeah, please.
can we get the technique?
Oh yeah, exactly, exactly. All right. Now,
Okay.
next comes the thesis. What is the thesis? Usually, the thesis state the main idea of the essay. This is something which we have studied, and we have now very strong belief, and we have established in our mind that the thesis statement is the backbone of an essay. All right. Remember in the previous lecture, I gave you and I shared with you thesis statements about,
Yes, ma'am.
exercise, essay about exercise. Okay. So, the thesis statement usually states the main idea of the essay and tells what the organization of the information will be. However, in a narrative essay, the thesis, okay, see, when we talk about narrative writing, we say that it is telling a story. So, when we are telling a story, the thesis statement is basically it introduces the action that begins in the first paragraph of the essay. So, an example of a thesis statement, look at this. Now, as I watched the bus driver set my luggage on the airport sidewalk, I realized that my frustration had just begun because his pride wouldn't allow him to achieve. Look at this is one example of a thesis statement. All right, and now you are going to set up more and add more details around this thesis statement. Okay. Another example, because his pride wouldn't allow him to apologize, Ken now had to fight the bully, and he was pretty sure that he wouldn't win. The example sentences do not tell the reader what happens, they only introduce the action that will follow. So, the paragraph in the body will develop the story. So, in easy words, a thesis statement introduces the action. All right, it doesn't tell that what happens. Okay, it just introduces the action, and the entire story will revolve around that. When you are writing the body paragraphs, then you will write and you will unfold the characters, you will unfold the events, you will unfold the story. Yes, please.
Ma'am, this thesis statement can be a complex sentence.
Yes,
It
yes,
can be.
yes, yes, it can be. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
It is a main idea followed by three reasons, three steps, three examples. This is what we have already studied. All right. But in the narrative essay, it is little different. In the narrative essay, it introduces the action. It introduces the main action that begins in the first paragraph. And then the body paragraph will follow that thesis statement, that thesis action that has happened in the introductory paragraph. All right. Like now, as I watched the bus driver set my luggage at the airport on the airport sidewalk, I realized that my frustration had only just begun. Now you will be writing about what is the reason of the frustration, what happens next, what happened before, right?
Right.
Okay, now, okay, what will you write in the body? In the narrative essay, the body of your narrative essay contains most of the plot, the supporting information. The action in the plot can be organized in many different ways. So, the first introductory paragraph has hook and the thesis statement. You have introduced a main action. Now, since you are going to tell a story and the whole events and the series of events that took place, that you will write in the body paragraph. So, in the body paragraphs, it can be chronological or time order. So, in this method, each paragraph gives more information about the story as it proceeds in time. The first paragraph usually describes the first event, the second paragraph describes the second event. All right. So, chronological order means that you are going to first mention that the first event that happened in the story, the first situation, then in the second body paragraph, you're going to write about another event that happened. Okay. So, this is how you will form your body paragraphs. Okay. Acha, in the narrative essay, transitional sentences are also very important. So, in a chronological organization, each paragraph ends with a transitional sentence. And what are the transitional sentences? I have two purposes basically, to signal the end of action in one paragraph, to provide a link to the action of the next paragraph. So, these sentences are vital because they give you a story, unity, and allow the reader to follow the action easily. So these transitional sentences, they are basically they are used for the coherence and the connectivity of the sentences. We already have studied that. If you remember, I told you before that, however, moreover, for example, all right. In addition to that, although, in spite of, they all are the transitional sentences and the words. And the conclusion. The conclusion, like academic essay, narrative essays need to have a concluding ideas. So in the concluding paragraph, you finish describing the action in the essay, and the final sentence can have two functions. It can deliver the moral of the story or tell the reader what the characters learned from the experience. So you see that the ending of the story is the conclusion, that what happened in the end. The characters went through different, the series of the events, they experienced ins and outs in their life. All right, they have gone through a lot of troubles in their life, and they also, adapted the strategies to resolve those issues which they have been experiencing in their life. So, what happened to them in the end? What lesson they learned, all right, that will also give the reader a lesson, and it can make a prediction or a revelation, like disclosure of something that was not known before about future action that will happen as a result of the events in the story. So your conclusion can be based on two things. It can be a moral lesson that is learned by the characters, so eventually the readers will also learn, all right, and it can also be a prediction or a revelation of any information that the readers did know about it before. Like this is an example. Simple narrative essay. News of the tiger's attack on a woman spread like wildfire. This was not the tiger's first appearance in the village. Before this attack, the villagers had lost a few goats and poultry, but the disappearances remained a mystery as nobody could confirm that they were a tiger's doing. Then the tiger struck. Okay, so you see that the whole essay, this was the introduction, and then in the second paragraph, you are further elaborating the events that this time the victim was a 32-year-old woman who was washing clothes by Tasik Bina. This is the place. The villagers at once organized a hunting party armed with, this is machetes and rifles. The hunting party, comprising six stocky men and me, left the campung Tempion on 10th June. So you see that the writer is personally, is using I and we. It is more personal narrative in the story that makes it a narrative, that makes it a story and the narrative form of writing. And then you will read the whole essay and different events, like, and then in the third paragraph, first paragraph is introduction, second paragraph is the, is setting up the story about the woman, introducing the character. Third paragraph is the event, description of the first event, and another paragraph is the description of the second event that happened in the story. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, now
Yes, ma'am.
Now, we have some 5 minutes to go. I would like to give you an assignment in the narrative essay as well. And don't worry, I will put more the assignments in the WhatsApp group. So this is an activity to help you get started brainstorming. I would like you to take out a blank sheet of paper and turn it sideways. On the left side of the paper, write your date of birth. All right. Like, for example, Asad, your date of birth is October 21, 1992. Okay. Just imagine. And on the far right side of the paper, write today's date. All right. So today is 2021. right? No, 22nd.
Yes,
All right.
20,
So,
20
okay,
years.
20. Okay. So, November 22nd, 2020. All right. Imagine that this is the date. So, it is the difference of how many years? 18, 20, 18. All right. 18 years. All right. So, just suppose that it is the timeline of your 18 years, well, since you were born till now. Clear? Now, what do you have
Yes,
to do? What is the task? Pick one event and experience and begin a new timeline. Think of everything leading up to from that moment and trace it along the timeline. Now, under each entry on your timeline, jot down as many adjectives, descriptive words you can think of that would help bring that experience to life. Like maybe that if you are writing about in your, in your 18 years of life, your first day of university was the most memorable time, or maybe your 15th have birthday when you touched 15, right, and you celebrated your birthday. That was the most memorable event in your life. Maybe you had a terrible fight with your friend and you had a, you can say a very long breakup. All right, so you can take in share write about that time and that event. So you can think of that would help bring that experience to life. Concentrate especially on those words that help appeal to your senses: touch, taste, hear, smell, sight. Step back and look at your life as a timeline. What insight can your life reveal? What lessons would you like others to learn from your life? What lessons have you learned yourself? These are some questions you can ask to help you come up with your overall point. Or, in other words, I'm asking you to write your autobiography. All right? In the entire 18 year of your life, since you were born till now, all right, when we are writing our biography, or sorry, autobiographies, so we mostly mention the most important events that happened in our life and that left indelible marks on our heart and on our brain and on our memory. All right. The most important, the unforgettable moments of our life. So again, you have to write you have to write one of the events, narrate one of the events and experiences of your life that had a greater impact on you and you learned something from this. All right. Or write your autobiography. That is your assignment. Yes. Now tell me, any questions? Yes. Do you have any questions?